and welcome to the Lighten Up Podcast with Lauren Polly, your invitation for living on the lighter side of life. I'm Lauren Polly, and I am delighted you have chosen to join me today for episode 188 Lessons from the Cowardly Lion. Today, I want to talk all about courage, and not just the courage that we think of as like charging forth into battle, like the Cowardly Lion did in The Wizard of Oz, but the courage to actually change. The courage to look at a point of view that you have, look at a limitation that you have, look at an unexplored area that you may be desiring to get more involved in, and actually having the courage to change enough and do it. I think so many of us have this pull for more, this desire for more. We want to continue to explore, but the courage factor to actually step forth and do it, not just look at it, not just play with the possibility, not just go maybe someday, eventually, but actually start to make real and true steps towards it and actually have real and true change in our lives gets a little bit tricky to do. And I love being able to pull on these kind of parables from when we were little to show us what's possible. I don't know if you've watched the movie any time of late, but I was rewatching it, and for me, it was funny to watch all of the characters in The Wizard of Oz because they were all basically challenged with their limitations. They thought they didn't have a brain, they thought they didn't have a heart, that they didn't have courage, and through the experience, through pushing into that a bit more, they were able to disprove those limited beliefs. They were able to not just kind of look at a change, but actually go forth with it. And in the process, actually kind of prove to themselves that they had the chops to do what they wanted to do. It wasn't an easy path. It wasn't kind of smooth going, absolutely, but how many of our lives actually take that same route? I think so often we are looking at making a change in our life and we're expecting it to be easy and we're waiting for the very right time to do it. And for me, this movie was such a beautiful example of perhaps there isn't a right time. Perhaps there is just this jumping off the cliff and trusting that you're going to be able to not only handle it, but actually thrive in that challenge. I'd like you to look for yourself. Where, first and foremost, do you have a limited belief about yourself? Where your points of view about who you are, where your definitions of self are from a limited perspective. Perhaps you've tried something new in the past and it didn't go very well. Just a FYI, that happens to everybody. Not everybody succeeds all the time, especially in the way they think they are when they first go out of the gate. The person who actually does make change and go forward and eventually succeeds is the person who actually continues to go forth. They're the ones who fall down and get back up again. They're the ones who go, oh wow, that really isn't working. I'm going to change it. I've done this multiple times. It's funny, I was talking to a private coaching client that I'm working with one-to-one, and she had said that about me. She says, oh, but you're just so successful and you just seem so conscious and able to go and explore. And I'm like, yeah, but you're just looking at some of the bigger things I've created. You aren't really looking at all the times I have put something out and it flopped completely. Or I put something out and no one was interested. Or I put something out and went, wow, this actually isn't what I desired, and had to go back to square one. Entrepreneurs, people who are living a creative life, even just your day-to-day stuff sometimes take on that same vein. We all make choices that actually don't produce the results we think they are going to. Sometimes the energy of it just changes so dynamically. And a lot of times we get going and we get what it is that we think that we want, and come to find out it's actually not. So a lot of those times, a lot of those things can actually look and feel like failure. They can feel like, oh my goodness, I put all this energy, all this time, all this money, everything into it, and it's not working the way I thought it would. So it's very easy to start having these limiting beliefs about yourself, these defined points of view of, oh, when I try that, I fail. Or, wow, I'm actually really not good at that. And for me, these characters in The Wizard of Oz are great examples of that. How many experiences did they have that created those points of view about not having courage, not having a brain, not having, the heart? And it's also interesting just kind of a side-lying note to this, whenever you have a limiting perspective about yourself, whenever you have that definition of, I'm actually not good at this, or I can't do that, or that's not a skill set that I have, or I fail when I try something new, when you have that perspective, you actually prove it to yourself time and time again. It's a very sneaky way that self-sabotage actually comes into our world. When you have these perspectives, even if they're more unconscious, even if they're more hidden, when you have them, you actually create a life. You create life experiences that prove that to you constantly. We do that in a really weird way to actually prove that we're right, that we are limited in some strange way. There's no logic to it. Don't try to figure it out. It won't help you. This is just kind of the way us humans kind of bounce around the planet. Instead of doing that, instead of actually having experiences that prove your limiting points of view, what if you were willing to step forth with courage to have experiences that disprove it? And for me, that's what this, especially the lion, really proved, right? The courage, I think, is such a big, big, big thing for most of us. Had he not been pushed the way he was pushed, had he not actually been like feet to the fire, I don't know if he ever would have chosen that path and had the opportunity to have the experience to flip that perspective completely for himself. And it's fascinating. I think so many of us have that point of view that unless I am absolutely pushed, unless my feet are to the fire, unless it is a life and death thing, or I'm so far in debt that I have to step out and do something new for money, or my relationship is totally crumbling, I guess I have to now do something different, or my body health is so poor that now I'm going to pay attention, or my mental health is so poor that now I have to pay attention. You just look for yourself how often we have that perspective of, unless I'm pushed, unless it is a feet to the fire moment, I'm actually not going to have the experiences. I'm not going to step out of my comfort zone that would actually allow me to challenge those limiting points of view and disprove them to myself. It's so interesting to actually look at when you're willing to choose change in your life. And I know those of you listening, I mean, this podcast is about lightening up. It's absolutely about the exploration of living and moving and self-evolution and growing your life. And so many of you feel pulled to that. You feel pulled to that change. But at the same time, it's something that's a maybe someday thing. It's not so much of, I'm just going to go, I'm just going to explore, I'm going to be a bit uncomfortable, but I'm going to allow myself to have experiences that will change me. And I'm going to have experiences that actually disprove that I can't do it. And I'm going to allow myself to actually go forth with that with courage. So everywhere that you have been stopping yourself completely from actually choosing change, from choosing exploration, and from having that inner courage to know that no matter what, you're going to be okay. Will you allow those points of view? And will you allow your past experiences that really prove that you can't do it to yourself to start to dissipate, release, dissolve, destroy, and uncreate? If you were able to take a softer approach with how you see you, and if you were able to have more of a curious cat energy, more of an exploration, more of a childlike wonderment and amazement with all the experiences life has to offer, would it be a bit easier to actually choose them? It's a very different perspective of what the characters in The Wizard of Oz chose, right? They were pedal to the metal, they were feet to the fire, you got to do it. And that experience, they allowed it to actually change them. Yes, you can definitely have those trauma drama experiences change you as well. We've all gone through that with big life moments. But I'm very curious, what other easeful ways can you actually start pushing your comfort zone? Can you start to actually allow yourself to go beyond where you think that you can go? Or perhaps go to where you were before and have failed. and go, you know what, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to keep on going. There's something here for me. And it's fascinating, like I said about this private client I'm working with her perspective of, oh my goodness, but you succeed all the time. How often I have conversations with other creators, and from the outside, they look hugely successful. They look like they've got everything together. They look like everything is just going exactly how they planned. And when you have conversations with those people, how often they run into this same thing where, it's just not exactly what I'd like, or wow, I did put this stuff out there and it didn't work, or there's a lot of stuff in my personal life that's not actually going the way I think I desire it to go. We all go through this. It's a lie that anyone out there is creating a life in perfection. And when you see that and when you have that perspective that other people are, you probably are going to be less likely about putting yourself out there and really allowing yourself to push past your comfort zone and go with courage to actually do it. So know that everyone, even the ones you may be idolizing or looking up to, they all go through this stuff. This is just the way of life. It's the way of creation. Relationships fall apart, bodies do interesting things, businesses, oh my goodness, there's so much ups and downs with that. It's not about the perfection. It's not about achieving that. It's actually about having experiences in your life, living them, and allowing those experiences to change you, allowing the experience in of itself to facilitate you, and allowing that experience to open your eyes more to what you're capable of, and perhaps a clearer vision of what you would like in your future. Without the experience, without actually going and testing your mettle, so to speak, it's really hard to know that. There's only so much you can figure out by looking at something, or by playing with it in your mind, or by playing with the energy of the possibilities. That's fun, and that's where most of us, I feel like, get stuck sometimes. What is the action? What's the experience? And what can you charge forth with that would bring more clarity through that? And with that, actually bring the courageousness of letting the experience bring that change for you. Absolutely, you may fail. Absolutely, just like these characters in the movies, you may go through lots of ups and downs, and it may be a little bit rough going sometimes, but if you know that deep down you can handle it, and that experience in of itself may help you thrive in your life in a whole new way, it may actually bring a different perspective on. This is a conversation I love to have. I find so many people do this where there's just not the courage factor. There's not this, like, I think I may be able to, and I'm just going to go for it. This is a conversation I have a lot with people in my coaching community, my one-to-one clients, and also on the Blaze program, which is a monthly call where we get together and ask questions, pop open energy, and actually allow, again, the experience and the exploration to facilitate and change us. Blaze is opening for its second semester at the end of this month. The link to join the waitlist is down below. I invite you to pop in if this is a conversation that you've been having with yourself. You've been desiring change, you've been desiring exploration and pushing past what you know right now, but perhaps need a little bit more support, a little more facilitation, and a little bit more of that chutzpah to actually do it and to go into the experience of it, not just in your head, but in actualized form. That's where the change actually occurs. And quite frankly, that's where the surprises of beauty of life comes from. Sitting and playing with things in your mind is one thing, but actually putting your feet to it and getting out there and tasting it and experiencing it, there's more of a sensorial way to go about change in your life. And that's really and truly what I'm inviting you into. If it feels fun, go back and watch The Wizard of Oz. I've been having a fun time digging back through it and look at it from this perspective, like, wow, yes, they were allowing the experience to change them, and they were totally different on the other side of it. And start to ask, well, if I didn't have to go through the trauma, the drama, the push into it like these characters did, but I could, in my own way, allow myself to go through perhaps an uncomfortable choice and allow that experience to change me, push past my comfort zone a bit, I wonder what I could create for myself, my body, and my future. It's an amazing conversation to be having. Have a great week, and as always, I will chat with you next Tuesday.